Hi everyone, my name is Yusuf Oluwafemi Salako, popularly known as Ori David, a 500 level student of law, University of Lagos, and founder of the Ori David Consult. If you are new here, I say welcome to you, and do not forget to click on the subscribe button so you don't get to miss out whenever we upload new videos. If you like this video, also click on the like button down below, and also you can leave a comment, engage us, let us interact. Today we shall be interrogating a very important topic in criminal law, which is the legal elements of an offense. And the thrust of this discussion is for us to explore the terrain of the law as far as what the elements of an offense are. So when we take a look or cast a look at the provisions of Section 2 of the Criminal Code, you see that it defines an offense to be either an act or omission that has been rendered punishable by some legislative enactment. So which tells you that upon a careful examination, the truism will be revealed that for the legal elements of an offense are two: the physical elements and the mental elements. The physical elements known as the Actus reus and the mental elements known as the mens rea. For this discussion, we shall concern ourselves with exploring the law, position of the law on Actus reus, while in subsequent videos we then examine what the mens rea entails. Now, Actus reus. When we talk about the Actus reus, the Actus reus is the physical elements of an offense. Some have even argued that the Actus reus is the definition of the offense. So, like I said, the criminal code said an offense is either an act or an omission. So when we talk about the Actus reus, it is either when you act or when you omit to act. Now it is about the commission or the omission. So before you can commit offense, you either must have done something or you have neglected or refused to do something. So you do something or you persuade yourself not to do something, and that is what is known as the Actus reus. So when we speak of the Actus reus, you also know that it has two elements as well, which is the act, that is commission, and omission. Now we'll take each of these one after the other. So when we talk about the act, so the act is just talking about when you do something, that is when there is a positive action. So if you should steal or you commit the offense of stealing, what you need to have done is to have either taken that particular item or you convert that particular item. You must have done something before you can say that you have committed an act. So when we speak of the Actus reus, like we have said, it has to do with the action. The act is talking about you doing something. It's talking about you doing something that is a commission of an offense, and that is what is known as the Actus reus. The Actus reus contains either an act to do or an omission not to do. So someone who is liable for the offense of murder must have also done an act. That is, that act must be the one to either kill the deceased or to cause grievous bodily harm. That means you have done something. So if you commit the offense of assault under Section 252 of the Criminal Code, it says that you must have either strike a person or you do any other thing to that person. There must be an action, a positive action from you that is directed to the victim. So when you are now doing that act, that is what is known as the Actus reus. The Actus reus says you act. So when we talk about the Actus reus, we are talking about the physical elements of the offense. Like I said, we are talking about the fact that the law must have provided that you do something. Then when you do that particular thing, that is the commission, that is the act. If you should steal, you take or you convert. If you should commit the offense of rape, it means that you must have had carnal knowledge. You understand? You must have had carnal knowledge without consent. You are doing something. You are acting. So when we talk about the Actus reus also means this. But it's important to also clarify that the Actus reus, that is the act, can also constitute or accommodate the consequences that arises from the act. Now take for example, before you can be guilty of the offense of murder, so to say, you must have either caused the death of a person, or you must have caused done that particular thing with intention to cause grievous bodily harm. So if you should let's say you shoot someone and the person did not die, now you have committed, there is an act, the act of shooting the person, but now the person did not die. So since the person didn't die, it means that he cannot be guilty of the offense of murder, because the legal consequences, that is the consequences that the consequences that arise from your action is also intertwined with the act. So it tells you that when we talk about the acts of the Actus reus, it also accommodates the consequences that also flow from that action. That is, in some circumstances, and that is the reason that, and this explains what is known as causation, because there are some offense that you can only be criminally liable where there is a link between the act and the consequence that actually arises. So both of them can be matched together to be your physical element, to be the Actus reus. Now that is that for an act. What about an omission? So when we speak about omission, remember that we said that the Actus reus, that is the physical element, contains two sub-elements, so to say. That is an act or an omission. So an act is a commission, you do something. Now when we speak of omission, it means omission to act. Now omission to act is simply a failure to act. To omit to do something is basically willful neglect. So it means that the law has imposed on you a duty to actually carry out certain actions, and then you have refused to do so. But it needs to be stated, that is a caveat. We should drop a caveat to point out that generally the law does not criminalize a refusal to act, that is omission to act, without any duty that has been created. So which means that generally in law there is no duty to act, because in law omission without a duty will simply not create an indictable offense. So this explains why a criminal prosecution for omission to act is not that common, because the law is always reluctant to place a burden on people or to compel certain persons to undertake a risky venture. So take for example, it is always common to see motorists and passers-by taking photographs of accidents victims, or at times they even record these accident scenes instead of seeking medical aids for the victims. Now those motorists and passers-by, are they liable in law? Have they committed any offense simply by not acting, simply by not seeking medical assistance for the victims of the offense? No, they haven't. Why? Because there is no legal duty on them to actually help the victims. So an omission to act, you must always understand, before it will amount to a crime, it must have been that there is a legal duty that has been imposed on you by the law. If there is a legal duty, then if you should fail to act, then it will constitute an offense. We can also try to look at the case of R and Smith. It's an 1826 case. In that case, D had a helpless idiot brother who was bedridden in his house. So D kept his brother in a dark room without sufficient warmth or clothing. The court held that this will not constitute an assault or an imprisonment, because there is no legal obligation on one brother to maintain another so as to make the omission indictable. So you can see, we must also state that when law creates a duty and the person is disabled to perform, the law has created a duty, but the person is disabled to perform the act, and without any fault of his, having no power over it, then the law in general will excuse him, as the law is not to be deemed to compel the doing of an impossible act. So you can see, it means what we are talking about is the fact that even where the law has cast a legal duty on you, if you are disabled to act by factors beyond your control and there is no fault on your part, then the law will not see hold you to be criminally liable, because the law will not ask you that which it is impossible for you to do. Lex non cogit as impossibilia. But we must then point out that omission to act can all be criminalized in some circumstances. One of such is where a statute creates a legal duty. So now, this duty is not a moral duty or a social duty. It is a legal duty, because it is a duty that has been imposed by the law, that is by the statute, to perform certain civic responsibilities, such like reporting of crimes or payments of taxes. Another example is the recent law on compulsory treatment and care for victims of Gunshot Act 2017. I repeat, the recent law on compulsory treatment and care for victims of Gunshot Act 2017. This act provides that a person with a gunshot wound shall be received for immediate and adequate treatment by any hospital in Nigeria, with or without initial monetary deposits. So it means that where a person suffers from gunshot wound, you cannot, as medical personnel, refuse to attend to him simply because he has not made payments, because the law has now cast a duty on you. In US, for example, you find out that there is a law that mandates, people that sell firearms or people that sell firearms to report anyone who buys a firearm. You sell firearm, you have to report anyone who buys a firearm, especially anyone previously convicted of domestic violence, to specified law enforcement agencies. So you must report. Failure to do so, you have committed an offense. If you also look at the provision of section 199 of the Criminal Code, it imposes a duty on peace officers to suppress riots. Section 200 of the Criminal Code then imposes a duty on persons with reasonable notice to aid peace officers in suppressing riots. So peace officers, they have a duty to suppress riots, and even you as an individual, you have a duty to assist them to suppress riots. It's also important to point out that the term peace officer is used to describe anyone who has statutory law enforcement powers. So it means that peace officers are not necessarily just the police officers. Equally important is section 201 of the Criminal Code, which imposes duty on persons with reasonable notice to aid peace officers or police officers in arresting the suspect. So it's a legal duty upon you. If you refuse to do so, you'll be committing an offense. And that is an omission. That is the Actus rules. Section 202 of the Criminal Code also imposes a duty on citizens to obey statutes, to obey acts and laws. So when you look at all of these provisions, you find out that there is a legal duty to act. A statute has created a legal duty. Take, for example, section 53 subsection 2 of the ACJA, that is Administration of Criminal Justice Act, which also provides that a person is bound to assist a judge or magistrate or police officer or any other public officer reasonably demanding his aid. There is a duty. Omission to do all of this will incur criminal liability. Another circumstance where an omission to act will amount to a crime is where there is a contract that creates legal duty to act. And you can see the case of R versus Pitwood in this regard. In R versus Pitwood, the defendant, who was a level crossing gatekeeper, he negligently left open a crossing gate. So this led to the death of a carter whose cart was then struck by a train. It was held that D had a duty to shut the gates, while his negligent failure to act would lead to his conviction. So you can see there was a duty, a contractual duty. The contract has created a legal duty, and if you refuse to do what you are expected to do pursuant to the terms of the agreement, then that would be an omission that could incur criminal liability. In the same connection, we found out that a duty is imposed on physicians to save lives and to report gunshot wounds, and also a duty is imposed on lifeguards to save a drowning man. These are duties that have been imposed. It is more of a combination, that is a harmonious relationship between the contract and the law. So when you look at section 20 of the National Health Act of 2014, for example, further that it provides that a health worker shall not refuse a person emergency medical treatment for any reason. Emergency medical treatment, you shall not refuse a person for any reason. Any health worker who contravenes that law will be liable to a fine of 100,000 naira or to imprisonment for 6 months or to both. So you can see how failure to act, omission to act, can also amount to a crime. But remember, it is because there is a legal duty that is created either by the statute or by the contract. Another circumstance where omission to act would amount to an offense, that is the Actus rules of an offense, is where there is a special relationship between the parties which creates a legal duty to act. So, it consists of biological, adoptive, foster parent-child relationship. So, for instance, now a parent is obligated by law to provide clothing, shelter, and medical care for their children, because children are dependent on their parents, so they do not have the ability to provide for themselves. So in this particular circumstance, you find that it is based on the special relationship that exists that the law has imposed a duty. If you look at the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015, that is VAP or VAPP, you see that it prohibits abandonment of children and spouses without means of sustenance. You cannot abandon your children or your spouse without providing means of sustenance. So under this act, anyone that contravenes or is convicted of this offense will be liable to imprisonment of not less than 1 year or a fine of not less than 100,000 naira. Another circumstance where an omission to act would also constitute the Actus rules of an offense is where a person assists another person to create a dangerous situation for himself. Where a person assists another person to create a dangerous situation for himself. And this, you can see the case of R versus Evans. In R versus Evans, it was held that for a duty to arise, the defendant knew or ought to have known the danger he created. Therefore, one has an obligation to rescue a person who one has put in a perilous situation. So you put the person in that danger zone, then you have a duty to actually assist that particular person, to rescue that person. You can also see the case of R and Miller, where the defendant watched a small fire. He watched the small fire spread to engulf an entire building, which was started by the cigarettes that he lit after he fell asleep. When he woke up to find the mattress burning, slowly with smoke, regardless of being the cause, he simply moved to another room and then he went back to sleep. The defendant was subsequently convicted of arson. Yes, this fire was created, this fire started, you created this danger. So you have a duty to ensure that you do all you can to put it to rest, to stamp it out. It's a different case if you just see a fire burning, you can just be looking. Yes, there is no legal duty on you to act. You are not firefighter. So that may not amount to omission to act, but where you are the one that actually caused that particular danger that act, then you need to act. And then the last circumstance where an omission to act will constitute the actus reus of an offense is where there is a voluntary assumption of duty. Where there is a voluntary assumption of duty. So this is where, A's act makes B dependent. A's act will make B to be dependent upon A for further assistance. So in this instance, A will be criminally liable if he fails to render the assistance, because you were the one that made the other party to actually depend on you for further assistance. So you can see the case of R versus Sinclair, Jancy, and Smith, where the defendant was held to owe a duty to a self-injector on the basis that the defendant had helped him to obtain drugs and had lived with him as a house mate. So these are the circumstances upon which an omission to act could constitute the actus reus of an offense. And that is that for today's class on actus reus. Actus reus simply has two elements that you must also prove, either an act or the omission. And like we have said, it constitutes the physical element. But remember that the actus reus is one arm of the legal element of an offense. We must also prove the mens rea, that is the mental element, except for strict liability offenses. Then in our subsequent video, in our subsequent class, we are going to interrogate the position of the law on the mental elements of an offense, and we're placing much focus on the criminal code. And that is that for today. Thank you for staying tuned, and I hope this video helps you a lot. I must also quickly recommend a textbook that I believe will be of enormous assistance to you as far as your study on criminal law is concerned. And this is the Simplified Criminal Law in Nigeria. Simplified Criminal Law in Nigeria. Written by Oluwatomi A. Ajayi. Written by Oluwatomi A. Ajayi. Simplified Criminal Law in Nigeria. Written by Oluwatomi A. Ajayi. Now this book, this is mine. I have a copy. As you can see, this is mine. Yusuf Oluwafemi Salako Ori David. And this is one of the books that I use to study criminal law. And as far as this lecture is concerned, this is the book that I have used alongside other textbooks, but majorly I use this book especially on the omission to act part. This book is a very resourceful book. I believe that you find it helpful, and this book dispenses with superfluous details and without being too economic with relevant details that you need to avail yourself of as far as topics or discussions on criminal law is concerned. It goes for just 1,500 naira. You can get it in University of Lagos bookshop, or you can get it at Faculty of Laws Annex, or you can simply just send a message to me. You can get it from me as well. Simplified Criminal Law in Nigeria, written by Oluwatomi A. Ajayi. I strongly recommend. Thank you, everyone. And I must also remind you of the Write and Speak It Well with Ori David that we'll always do every Friday. So tomorrow is Friday. Anticipate our video on Write and Speak It Well with Ori David. In this session, or this part of our virtual learning class, we believe that language rhetoric is very important. You must not just learn the law or how to find the law. You must also learn how to articulate. So advocacy, be it written or oral advocacy, is very important. Lawyers are writers. Lawyers are speakers. And the English language is our lingua franca. So you must also arm yourself to teeth with the basic rules of grammar. So you don't get to drop clangers here. You don't get to make blunders. Or you don't get to weave words that smack of grammatical inconsistencies. And for tomorrow, First, I'll be recommending books that will assist you in any writing project that you have decided to undertake. And tomorrow we shall also start with punctuation. How do you punctuate your work? And that is that for today. Do anticipate, write and speak it well with Ori David every Friday. Thank you for staying tuned. I remain Yusuf Oluwafemi Salako, popularly known as Ori David. I'm your guy. Thank you. Don't forget to stay